Hi everyone, welcome to week 7 of English 102. I decided to make this video to cover what we're going to do in week 7 and week 8 so that you can kind of be working across those 2 weeks. We won't have any additional assignments, so I wanted to talk both about revising your ethnography drafts and then working on your symposium posters. So let's go ahead and get started. So the assignments we have for this week and next, we only have 5 things left, y'all, so we've got a very short to-do list, although some of them may take a minute. Don't forget to attend your one-on-one conference during week 7. These are short and sweet. They'll go over your ethnography draft and then talk a little bit about your poster in case you're feeling a little overwhelmed. These are required as part of your draft grade. So if you haven't scheduled yours yet, please do so immediately. And if you missed yours or need to reschedule, please reach out to me. Besides that, we have 2 research reflections due between now and the end of the semester. One is the peer review for the essays we're working on. That's going to be due this Thursday. Next Thursday, I'll have a reflection posted for a self and course evaluation. So this is going to be no readings attached to it, just a kind of how do you feel like you did over the course of the project, and then do you have any advice for other students as they embark on this journey? And finally, the 2 hard due dates I cannot give extensions for are our ethnography final drafts due May 12th, and then your symposium poster, which is due May 15th. So the final draft of your ethnography, I want to make it clear that you are not rewriting your paper. You are just improving the draft. You are adding to what you have, maybe taking some stuff out, moving things around, but you are not writing an entirely new paper, okay? So your essay drafts should hopefully be somewhere between 8 to 10 pages. They need to include 5 sources, 4 secondary and your primary source. And during your conference, come to your conference with some ideas of questions or concerns that you have with your draft. What do you want help with? What do you need help with? And what are you sort of lost on? So as we kind of work on revising this week, I want you guys to keep the purpose of ethnography in mind. So there's a couple quotes here about what ethnographies are meant to do. Our goal is to understand the culture under consideration by letting its members speak for themselves. So some of you mentioned a quote from the Ballinger text last week in our reflection space about looking through your sources for anecdotes or quotes or experiences that the people you're looking at have had and using those to kind of tell the story of your research. Ultimately, ethnographic research gives you a comprehensive understanding of the local culture you've studied, why you're involved in it, and how it's related to dominant cultural values. So I don't want you to just tell me, if I was, researching teachers, for example, I don't want you to just say teachers are people who teach. I want you to tell me, why are they significant? What's your point about them? What can we learn from your research on teachers? So be thinking about why we're doing this as you're working on revising. So something to help, I posted 2 short readings for this week, both from an open educational resource, an open textbook called Reading, Research, and Writing. There's one section on revising and editing drafts. It's very quick, very easy to skim through. And then one on some APA considerations that might be helpful as you revise. You do also want to read through The Curious Researcher, the 5th week. It has some really great strategies for revising. I cannot emphasize these readings enough. They're very helpful. So once you've done the reading for this week, a couple things I wanted to point out for y'all. One way that you can sort of help transition and keep all of these pieces together is by using signal phrases that sort of communicate who's doing the talking in your research and how they apply to each other. So I wanted to highlight this. Let me plug in my laptop here. I wanted to highlight this section here about model phrases in APA. As you can see, these emphasize the in-text citation, the author and the year of the source. But there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of discuss sources in your writing. And something I've seen people have questions about is also your primary research. How do you talk about it? And I usually tell students to treat it the same way that you would an article. Quote from it. Make sure you say who said what and what's significant about it, all right? Just because it's information that you've collected doesn't mean that you don't want to include it in your writing. Besides signal phrases, something else to keep in mind, especially for APA and citing, is that you can give in-text citations in 2 ways. We have one method that we call a narrative citation, which is like this first sentence here. If Stephen Hawking is the author, and then the year of the source is 2013. I cannot find my mouse on the screen. So this first one says Stephen Hawking, 2013, describes the climate at Oxford while he was studying as very anti-work, page 33. And then the other way that you could do this is with a parenthetical citation. When you have the author and the year and the page number all together in parentheses, that's a parenthetical citation, and it always goes at the end of your sentence, all right? So the second one says the same thing. The climate at Oxford during his studies is described as very anti-work, Hawking 2013, page 33. You'll notice it's the same information, it's just written at a different place in the sentence, all right? So it depends on what you want to emphasize. Do you want to emphasize what was said or who was saying it? In your ethnographies, you're probably going to want to emphasize the who more than the what, but you know, it really, you can kind of do what feels right. Sorry for the sirens, I live in the city. So something that you want to think about is focusing on your findings. The findings is going to be the longest part of your essay. Don't feel like every section of this essay has to be the same length, because it should not, all right? Your findings should be the longest, because this is essentially a mini essay within your larger piece. You should have an introduction, a middle, and then an end to this section. In your introduction section, think about how you can introduce this point that you have come to about this culture. And then in the body, think about if your paragraphs are separated, if you have one key idea per paragraph. Sometimes people like to do one source per paragraph. I'm fine with that. Or to make it more interesting, you can also introduce conversation between them, right? Talk about a theme in each paragraph. Then don't forget an overall conclusion. I think sometimes people write through their whole research and they're like, ooh, whew, I'm done. And I'm like, wait, where do we go from here? Oh no. Oh, okay. BRB. We got. So in your conclusion, talk about what future research could focus on. What could we do now that you've done this research? I'm going to kind of skip over a few things. Our reflection for this week is a peer review. So make sure you upload a copy of your draft, and then please peer review 2 other drafts with the questions I've posted in mind. What I do not want is for you to say, this looks really good, great job. That's not a peer review. That does not help anybody, all right? I want you to read through it and say, what's good about it? What could be improved? Where are you confused? You actually need to invest time in doing the peer review. You and your classmates will thank you. The more that you read other people's drafts, the better you can understand what you might want to do. So there are some instructions or some advice in your readings this week too that'll help with the peer review. The other things to think about, background and methodology. At the beginning, do you have an idea of why you chose to study this topic? Are your research questions clear? And then does your methodology explain how you collected information, from where and why? This is also a screenshot from your readings that sort of goes through step by step how you can check your findings section. Then, when looking at your conclusion, a conclusion should be more than just a summary of what you've done. I want you to talk about why this research is important, if there's opportunity for further research, and then what should your reader remember about your culture specifically. This is a really important part because it's the last impression. It's what you leave your reader with. It's most likely if someone's skimming through your writing, they're going to start with the beginning and the end. So this is what's meant to kind of bookend your project. Whew. Tips for revising. Read your paper out loud. Print a copy, write all over it, cut it up, maybe even start a new blank document and then kind of, I call this cannibalize. Just eat pieces from the other draft. Start with one section, take a break, and then work on another. Something you can do is put yourself in the shoes of your reader. That can kind of get you out of the writer mindset. The other thing I could recommend is go to the Success Center. There is an online writing lab that you have access to via eStorm. You go to eStorm and then quick links. Click the online writing lab and you can submit your research, your ethnography for someone else to look over. That's a great resource that you all have as a SWIC student. But ultimately, don't wait until the last minute to revise. We've got, about a week and a half until the final drafts are due. So you have time, and I want you to utilize that time. Don't wait until the last minute because you will not like yourself anymore. All right, the other thing that we're working on are those symposium posters. I did see that a lot of you guys were sort of anxious about the posters or not sure what it's supposed to look like. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It's not supposed to look like anything. It's supposed to look like how you want it to look. So as long as it communicates the point of your project in a professional and visually appealing way, I'm open, all right? There are traditional research posters that have a section with your research questions and then your methodology and then your findings and then your conclusion and then your references. And if you want to do that, that's great. If you want to do something a little more creative, I'm cool with that too. But overall, just think about how you can present this research to an audience that does not know much about the culture that you're studying, okay? Assume that you need to kind of explain to them, if you've only got this much space to do it in, what is the most important thing I should know about your culture? And how can your poster communicate that to me? All right? Final reminder, final drafts are due May 12th. Symposium posters are due May 15th. All right? You can do this. You do not need to freak out about it. You're going to be fine. I know this is a stressful time, but we are going to make it through together, okay? I am so excited to see your posters, so excited to read your final drafts and see how these projects are concluding for you. I will see you guys during conferences and talk to you soon.